So hello, NextOppSocial family. Juwan Buford broadcasting from Detroit metropolitan area, and really excited about our most recent episode with Mr. William David Tarver. I can't say enough about this gentleman. Pioneer in the telecommunications industry years and years ago. Actually sold his startup for $30 million plus. That's yes with 7 zeros. Right out the gate, just a wealth of information, knowledge, and insight. And we just had a fascinating discussion about entrepreneurship, his journey, and it was really a high level discussion that I couldn't help but to get on 10 about, right? For someone to be a pioneer in the industry, not readily accepted, and understand the trials and tribulations, the journey he went through, I tell you, you owe it to yourself to tune into this interview. And of course, now he has founded the Urban Entrepreneurship Institute, where he's actually pouring his knowledge, insights, and experience into the community and helping other people to enjoy entrepreneur success. And what I want to take a little bit of time today is to touch on a couple things that really caught my attention, some of my biggest takebacks. And I'm not going to tell the full story of the interview because I want to make sure you watch it, right, and get it firsthand. But I'll tell you, there's some real nuggets that I wanted to share with the group in terms of what I learned. And I hope individuals will take back from it as well. And, a couple of the lessons that I'll start with is, number one, talked a great deal about skill stacks, right? And how important it is. He talked a great deal about how he grew up in an environment and was edified by his father in particular around electronics and physics and science and math, and how that environment facilitated his success as an entrepreneur in the telecommunications industry, and how he was able to build successfully because of that skill stack and background. And it's something that we don't talk enough about as entrepreneurs. Nowadays it's pretty popular to say, look, I just want to start a business because I want to, because I think it's going to be lucrative, or because you're excited about it. But he provided a very sound reminder about the fundamentals of business, in the sense that you need to be good at the things you're doing, right? People don't pay 5-star prices for White Castle hamburgers, right? So you need to be effective. And one of the most important things you can do is make sure that whatever business you start up is in alignment with your skill stack. It's in alignment with a certain type of acumen that you exhibit already. And it doesn't necessarily mean that acumen has to be quote unquote natural, that you have to be some naturally gifted person. But by virtue of your exposure, by virtue of your knowledge, by virtue of your practice, right? It's important that if you intend to be successful, and when we say successful, we're talking about on a large scale, right? Like the scale that he achieved in his business, where he was able, once again, to build a business that sold for over $30 million over 20 years ago. Back when $30 million really it means a lot today. You don't see that happening too often, period. But definitely back then, right? So that was one thing that caught my attention that I thought was absolutely invaluable in terms of discussion that we had. The other thing that he shared that for me is so absolutely important, I talk about this a lot, I think about this a lot, that if you're going to build a business, you need to build it with the end in mind. So often individuals build a business just looking to earn some income, just looking to earn some money, right? But he talked a great deal about the fact that despite the fact he had never been an entrepreneur before, despite the fact that, for all intents and purposes, why he was very intelligent and very astute when it comes to telecommunications, he didn't have a legal background. He didn't understand about anything about the legal environment. He didn't have a tax and accounting background. He was not a guru when it comes to finances. He didn't have an HR background. Hiring and firing was not a strength of his. But what was a strength of his was understanding telecommunications and understanding what he was building, the product, what the value prop was, right? And he began with the end in mind right from the start that, look, I'm going to build a big business. And this business is going to be big enough where at some point the end game is we're going to be able to sell this business. We're going to build an asset. And when you understand that from the beginning, you move differently. You behave differently. I thought it was so profound, right? It determines how you carry yourself, how you conduct yourself, the energy you bring every single day to building something. If you're building a business where it's just intent to be a hustle and make ends meet, I mean, that's important. You do move with a certain degree of urgency as opposed to if the business is just a hobby to earn an extra couple bucks on the side. But because he had the end in mind, right? And I oftentimes will ask business owners, where do you see yourself 3-5 years from now? And it's always puzzling to me and a bit troubling when, well, I just want to earn enough to do A, B, C, and D. And the equivalent is basically just get by and be successful and maybe earn enough money to take a trip, have some steak and egg foodie pick, stuff like that. So I thought that was fascinating. I thought it was a very important lesson. I'll tell you the other lesson that I picked up, and we hear this a lot with many of the entrepreneurs that we have interviewed here at NextOppSocial. Those entrepreneurs that were born and bred during the 60s and 70s who came through that fire, right? The civil rights movement. And it really reminded me that at the end of the day, you don't wake up in the morning and become an immensely successful entrepreneur thinking about, I need more money. It has to be bigger than that, right? Because it's not that you need more money. You need more people. That's what you really should be thinking about. How many more people can I serve? How big can I scale my impact, right? And the thing that was really, really impressive to me is that because of that movement, he came out with the mission, and the people he worked with had the mission. They were going to prove themselves, that they needed to prove that they were just as good as everyone else, that it was not just about earning money. It's about proving humanity, proving worth, right? Proving that they belong, proving that they were superior and better, and all those different things. And I thought that was really fascinating, right? Because once again, so often people are building business, and look, there's nothing wrong. If you want to build a business because you want nice cars, nice watch, boat, yacht, you want to live the YouTube, social media life, fine, so be it, right? To each his own. No point trying to be somebody else. There's only, this isn't a dress rehearsal. Everybody's already taking. You might as well double down on you. So if you're about that life, fine. But the ideal that, look, they wanted to, number one, prove themselves, and they understood early on it wasn't about getting money. It was about solving problems. It was about getting people and solving the problems. And the bigger the problems, the more income they would earn. And they realized that going in. I thought that was a really important lesson, right? Something else that really caught my attention that I wanted to share that I thought is crucial. I know it's certainly crucial what we do here at NextOppSocial. It's certainly crucial to what I do. I share frequently. I'm always banging the tuning fork about the fact that I believe entrepreneurship and empowerment. I really do. When I look at what's going on here in Detroit metropolitan area, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of success. There's a lot of investment. And there's a saying that a rising tide lifts all ships. But the bottom line is your ships have to be in the water. If there's a rising tide and your ship is in the water, you're not going to rise. You're going to drown. And I see a lot of individuals, particularly what I would say the indigenous population. In other words, the individuals who have been here through the thick and thin, through the worst and now the best, right? A lot of people in the Detroit metropolitan area are not leveling up, along with the growth that's taking place. I mean, I reside in an area, quite frankly, where people are paying $700,000 to $1 million to live where I stay at, in the area I'm at. And the bottom line is most Detroiters cannot afford to live in this space and to live and buy those type of residences. They can't afford it. It's too costly. And that's because we don't have equity, because we really don't have agency in the situation. We don't own anything. And I believe that's one of the reasons why entrepreneurship is so absolutely important. If you want to take control of what happens at your kitchen table, you're sick and tired of last hired and first fired, I believe entrepreneurship is the answer. I believe you're listening to this, you believe it too, right? That entrepreneurship is the key. I'm not saying it's the only thing. I firmly believe it is the most effective thing. You can't have say-so. You can't have control of what happens in your community, in your neighborhood, if you're not the one employing the people in your neighborhood, in your community. You will always be in a situation where people can dictate what happens at your kitchen table and what happens in your neighborhood, in your community, and impact the dynamics there. The only way to overcome that is being an entrepreneur. And I thought it was interesting because back then, that was certainly at play, but it was even worse in the sense that he had a father that was highly intelligent, highly valuable in terms of skill sets and knowledge and ability to get things done. But back then, you could not get a job. he couldn't get a job in telecommunications. He could not get a job as an engineer. He could not get a job doing those things. So entrepreneurship was the outlet. It was the only way he could really express his talent, his intellect. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that today. And that's why I believe entrepreneurship is so important. I was having a conversation with a young man. He was talking about how, we were talking about how I think it's 12, 13%. It's been a while since I did the research, but only 12, 13% of African Americans actually attend a college or university. And I think only 7% actually matriculate and graduate, right? And if you look at the majority of African Americans who are excelling and doing well, particularly if you look at men, they're typically not going to be college graduates. The average African American man right now is doing about $50K per year. So kind of, you know, that working class, middle class area, and the majority of them is not because they have degrees, right? A lot of them are getting it in the trades and whatnot. I thought that was interesting, right? That to this day, entrepreneurship is still very much an outlet for individuals who may not be able to find expression for their gifts and their talents. So that was something that came out of it as well that I thought was very fascinating. The other lesson that I pulled out of this as well, and it was just a reminder, I'm just transparent with this. You know, talent, hard work, high acumen, a certain degree of skill, right, will take you a long way. It really will. But I'll take the person that isn't as skilled, isn't as talented, isn't as gifted, who is operating and planting seeds in fertile soil, meaning a growing market, a thriving market, a market that is reaching tipping point but hasn't got there yet, growing, expanding, right? Over the most brilliant entrepreneur in the world that's planting seeds in a market that is not growing, that is stagnant, or maybe even receding, right? And listening to him was definitely a reminder of that, as he talked about the fact that when he got involved in the telecommunications industry, it was still a very new industry, and certainly there were competitors, but not nearly to the extent that it is today, right? And that played a huge role in him becoming successful. I think about Warren Buffett, what he says all the time. You know, he says regularly, if he was born a century or 2 or 3 centuries earlier or in another country, he would have never become wealthy. A lot of it had to do with timing, right place, right time, having the skills, the talent, and a wherewithal to position yourself correctly in an environment where the conditions are ripe for your success. That has a lot to do with the market. And so often individuals are launching and growing businesses and you're swimming against the tide. And it does not mean, I'm not one to defecate in someone's cornflakes, but, you know, for me, when I think about success in entrepreneurship, I think about not necessarily being right, but I think about being effective and actually being able to build something that really is going to last beyond my lifetime. And I can't build something like that in a market that's shrinking. I can't pass on generational wealth utilizing tools or planting seeds in soil that's just not conducive to that. So I thought that was a very fascinating part of the conversation that we had. The other thing that he shared that was really fascinating to me, that I really, you got to get the details on this, but he talked about the ideal being urgent. How important it is to be urgent. So many of the entrepreneurs that I talk to, they're not urgent. I mean, they're real chill. They're real copacetic, you know. They're real on some, I'm just going to pray about it and somehow it's going to work out. And I don't knock prayer, okay? I'm a praying man. But they say faith without works is an empty promise, right? And he talked about his work rate. It wasn't just simply about work ethic, it was fear. Like, so often people want to be cool. They want to be chill. They want to look like they winning, right? Like they're not sweating. But he was like, nah. That was not the attitude we had. The attitude we had was we were urgent. Like anything could happen. We could fail. A competitor could come gobble us up. Anything could happen. And they worked with that kind of urgency. And I thought it was so relevant, right? It's one thing to talk about it academically. You read a book, YouTube, you're earning 100K. We're talking about, once again, the urgency that's required to build a multi-million-dollar business. And of course, today's terms, a multi-billion-dollar business. I thought that was really fascinating. You know, you can't be cool on the way up. You can't be pretty on the way up. It's not going to be all beauty and milk, you know, and milk and honey. There's going to be drama. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be turbulence. You're going to be, you know, you're going to be looking some kind of way on the way up. And I thought that was fascinating hearing that. And then, of course, the last thing that really caught my attention, because he dropped so many gems. Like literally, I'm only giving you a slice. But one of the gems that I thought about as I was listening to him once again it's this ideal being elite. And once again, building that skill stack. And, the question he said you have to be able to answer is, number one, what problem are you solving? And I've thought about that a lot. I ask entrepreneurs sometimes, what problem are you solving? And it's always puzzling to me sometimes, once again, when people really can't tell me the problem they're solving. They can tell me all about them. They can tell me all about how great they are. But literally, for real, what problem are you solving? Is that problem scale? Is it something you can solve at scale, right? If you're really looking to build a big business, if you're looking really to build a multi-million-dollar business, a business that will sell for $30 million, even in today's environment, you got to be solving big problems at scale. And I thought that was very fascinating. The other question that, or the other thing he talked about was the ideal is what makes your solution better than everyone else's, right? And once again, he talked about being able to provide a solution at scale. Because if you're going to, once again, sell a business to the tune of 30 million plus, you need to be your solution needs to be very, very, not necessarily unique, but highly effective. And once again, a solution that can be scaled, right, to solve big problems, to be scaled to solve a lot of problems. Then the other thing he talked about is why you. I thought that was fascinating too, right? When he said the other question you have to ask is why should they do business with you? And this goes back to skill stack. Once again, this goes back to what makes you elite. And you can't start up a business, let's say, I don't know, poultry. If you don't understand poultry, it's just not going to work. Okay. We know what we hear from the gurus, right? It can be turnkey and you can just start the business. It's going to be all good. No, that's not the way it works. Especially if, once again, the goal is to sell a business, to create an asset, right? Because at the end of the day, the asset isn't just you're an important piece of it, but the asset, once again, it's the employees. The asset is the leadership. The asset is the systems. It's the HR. It's the operations. It's the tax and accounting. It's all those things. If someone's going to buy your business, that's what they're buying, right? And that's part of that you factor. When I was listening to them, I was thinking, part of the deal is becoming the type of leader that can create those type of systems where someone can buy that business and that business can still operate independently of you because you've installed the right type of leadership, right? That's huge. And it's something business owners don't think about a lot. Like, I'm not going to mention names. I'm thinking about several business owners right now. Their businesses are probably doing anywhere from 50 to 100K in revenues, but their businesses are invaluable. The services they provide are invaluable, so unique, so experiential. There are some really iconic businesses here in Detroit metropolitan area, but because they refuse to put systems in place, they refuse to hire staff, they refuse to create a situation where the businesses can operate and grow independently of them. That's what it means, right? Going from solopreneur to business owner, that's what it means. You're a business owner when your business is able to operate and grow independently of you. And part of those systems are important, right? And so when he says, look, number one, what's the problem? Can you articulate that value prop? Number two, is your solution scalable? Is the problem you're dealing with, is it a problem needs to be solved at scale? And then what makes you special, or your staff special, or your business special, right? How are you solving this problem differently than everyone else? And, for me, that just really hit home as I thought about the businesses I'm building. As I think about the entrepreneurs that I serve and help, and how to make sure that we're not just creating jobs, so to speak, but we're actually creating enterprises where we can employ our family, friends, our neighbors, and our community. So I'm telling you, if you're about building a big business, once again, like this is the nosebleeds, okay? This is you saying, look, I'm determined to build something that's going to put me in the top 5%, right? I'm going to give them a 5% return when it comes to income earning. You really owe it to yourself to listen to this. If you're just looking for inspiration, or maybe there's a gem or a nugget, you're close, but it's something missing, man, who better than to listen to this gentleman, Mr. William David Tarver. He's an absolute jewel in our community. I felt bad when I learned about him a handful of years ago. I'm like, how in the world does a gentleman who has achieved all this success, who has done so much, has poured so much in the community, and is the real deal, right? Not someone just, look, I don't believe and faking something. I believe in faithing it till you make it. I believe in faking it, but it's a lot of gurus, not durus out here, right? If you catch my drift. And he's definitely a guru. He definitely has the receipts. And definitely, you want to tune into this episode. We'll be posting it here shortly. That being said, signing off. I celebrate your success in advance. Next opportunity, social family. Goodbye for now.